Hello friends and welcome back to my channel. This is the full process video that I promised in my last YouTube video. I kicked off this painting session by heading outside and gathering some supplies from nature. I am particularly drawn to this ornamental grass that's in my backyard, and so that's what you'll see me working with today. I have gathered 3 different types of paper here and I put them off to the side of my gel plate. The smallest piece of paper there is the watercolor paper from this pad, and I cut it into 6 even square pieces. Then I also have deli paper that I use occasionally to roll my brayer off on. And then I have this sketchbook paper that I enjoy. I cut it into fourths and I use this on my 8x10 gel plate. In this particular painting process, I gathered up 2 different kinds of families of color. I picked out lighter colors that matched that leaf, and then I wanted something that was really high contrast, so I picked a lot of Payne's Gray and Indigo. So right here, before I get started painting, I just like to run through every paint that I use in the video, so you can screenshot any of these that you're interested in, and then throughout the video I will pop up the color that I'm using, but you might not always see this whole view of the paint tube, but you can always refer back to this here at the beginning of the video. I hope that's helpful. So I'm kicking off this painting session by creating a whole collection of background papers, and I am pulling from all of the lighter colors on the right of my table. And if you watched my previous video, I talked all about how limiting your color palette and having a theme and all of these little things help you in your creative process. So I hope you look back at that video. I'll have it linked below and up at the top of this video. So as I'm working through here, I am making all of these background papers in these lighter colors. Sometimes I am swirling the paint around. You'll see with my brayer, it's kind of like a circular motion because I'm trying to mix the paint so that it mixes as best as it can, because sometimes if I don't get it really mixed well with that circular motion, then it kind of leaves like blobs of one color more than the other. And I try to get like an even layer of that mixed color. And you'll also notice I have like a mix of different kinds of paints. I have some fluid, some heavy body. You'll notice that throughout the video. I am personally a big fan of trying lots of different paints and colors on your gel plate. Sometimes there's like different textures that they each create, and I enjoy them all for different reasons. So here's a little bit of the grass that you'll see me using. I just wanted to show like one piece of it here. And I gathered several like chunks of that grass, and you'll see me use them throughout the video. So now I'm moving on to this darker color that I'm going to layer on top of the light backgrounds. And I am using my brayer to roll on top of the grass. And then the grass is creating the lines of texture on my gel plate. So anywhere the lines of the grass are, that is what's going to show the background color that you've put on your paper. And then anywhere you don't press the grass, where the blue in this scenario, where the blue is left, that blue, assuming that it's an opaque color, will cover up your background paper. And there's my first pull with the grass texture. Now on the watercolor paper, it wasn't pulling up the blue paint as well. So I do a couple different things throughout the process to try to change up how I'm pulling the watercolor pieces. So over here on the right, you're about to see something that I did not expect at all. I put down a piece of deli paper, and when I roll my brayer, it creates this really cool texture line, this right here. And that's because the last thing I did with my brayer was rolling on the grass. So it's showing that like different kind of grass line from the brayer around and rolling off on the deli paper. So interesting. So I wanted to show you the ornamental grass that's outside in my backyard just to give you an idea of where I gathered that from and what it looks like outside. That's what that video on the side was there. Then in the moment, I'm testing out that brayer technique again on some deli paper to make sure that it wasn't just like a freak accident, I think. I really enjoyed how that happened. And that can be like a totally separate piece of collage paper or whatever you'd like it to be. And again, on this watercolor paper, it's still a little splotchy and I'm not super happy with that. I'm having better luck with that sketchbook paper or sketch paper that was in that biggie pad. And I do really enjoy the color that mixed here. It's almost like a plum purple color. It's different than the indigo. I do so many different blues and like blue pools for the top color. I like having something different here, this purple. Right there, I'm kind of pointing to the corners of the background paper and trying to match up the corners when I lay it onto the gel plate. It doesn't always work, and you'll see that in a little bit, but typically it gets you pretty close to matching up. There's other tricks you can do to line up your paper, but I'm not always like overly worried about little things like that. Then I'm pulling up a little side-by-side comparison here. The one on the left, you can see that the top layer of paint is a little more spotty. And then that purplish color that I did on the right, that had a more even like layer of paint. And then again on my watercolor paper, it's not pulling up all the paint, and I've got a couple of these white splotches left. So here I'm cleaning off that gel plate so that the leftover paint doesn't affect the next print. And then you'll definitely see how I'm cutting out lots of parts. Like I'm speeding things up, but I'm also going to be cutting out a lot of parts that I know are repeating, just so that it's more enjoyable to watch. In this moment here, I switched to my 2.2-inch brayer because the large brayer was actually like hitting next to the like grass and peeling some of the paint up. And that small brayer was easier for me to control. When I use the small brayer on the grass, the edges of the brayer don't tip and touch the gel plate as much as the larger brayer does. So that's usually kind of what I'm like going back and forth with, is testing out the best way to get the lines of the grass without my brayer or my hand or other things getting in the way or peeling off extra paint. Trying to get that like pure grass line. And here's what my brayer looks like right now. I thought it was really cool. And that time, a little bit too much of that burnt orange color came out of the tube, so there's definitely more like tacky and a thicker layer of paint here, which was kind of on accident. So over on the right, now I'm going to try to weigh down the watercolor paper and see if that helps. So I went ahead and just did both. And just a real bummer, that one spot. So right here, I'm taking some papers and just kind of visually looking like maybe there's a section that would work if I cropped it out. You know, I don't always have to keep the whole piece of paper, so just kind of using other sheets to like use it as a viewfinder and see if there were other sections that I liked. So just remember that there's always ways to crop things and keep the parts you love, or, you know, rip things up or tear things up if they're going to become collage pieces, whatever works best for you. So this is the one time I think that I try this heavy body Payne's Gray. And I'm going to lay the magazines back on there. You can try like 15 minutes, 30 minutes, 45 minutes. And then I did not film this part, but I used those two colors there to pull off all the little speckly bits that were on my 8x10. So I'm starting here with a clean plate and mixing up this teal and graphite, because now I'm to the point where I need a whole new section of background papers. And one thing that was happening with my 4-inch brayer here was I noticed there was like indigo and stuff stuck on the side. So I'm rolling the edge of my brayer off on the gel plate, and it's creating these little dotted lines. And then adding the buff titanium on top to pull all of that up, and I get a really interesting texture print here. Like, no, it's not the normal like grass pulls I've been doing, but every once in a while I've got to do something fun and creative to clean off the gel plate. Because I don't typically like to use baby wipes to clean off. That's not what I normally do. So now I'm trying to figure out the best way to clean off my plate without using a baby wipe. And then I guess also that was cleaning off my brayer, the side of my brayer, in a creative way, and using that paint rather than wasting it. So this raw sienna paint here is a fluid acrylic, and it's leaving this different texture behind. And then since it was still wet, I do occasionally use this craft dryer on my gel plate. I know technically you're not supposed to apply heat to your gel plate, but I do that occasionally. And when I do it, I normally try to keep that dryer moving constantly. But you know, you can always just let things air dry. So like I said, I'm moving through here, creating another set of background papers. And I'm trying to just trim this video so that it goes a little bit faster for you, but so you can still see all of the things that I did. And that right there is just some of the deli paper that I've been rolling off on. It's kind of fun to do that. So this time I decided I'm going to peel the gel plate instead of the paper. And I'm still stuck with one tiny little spot. It's so sad. Like, they're not awful, they're just not my favorite. And then sometimes I'm using the dryer on top of the paper as well to help this dry and be ready to pull faster. This was a weird thing. I really think this is like how the ornamental grass kind of like sheds, and it was this piece. I really don't think it's a hair. Like, I just really don't. But this piece is like all wiggly and it shows on the gel plate, which I think is great. And then I'm pointing there to the side because this pull right here is what's inspiring me for the upcoming section. The way that that print was offset. And I saw that blue and white and I was like, okay, I want to try a blue and white only. And at this point I'm like, no, I don't really want just like a white background, even though it kind of looks like a cyanotype, which I think is kind of cool, or a blueprint. But I decided that I want to do color blocking, like intentional color blocking later. But right now I have these solid color background papers that I've already made and I want to get through those. You could also see there that I started to use my hand a little bit and not just the brayer. So I'm experimenting with that. And so I did put a glove on so that I could use my hand to press into the paint more often. So it's a combination of like the 2-inch brayer and my hand. And I feel like this one was like a really great example. Like I really got nice clean grass lines in the brayer and my hand. Nothing like pulled extra spots up, which was nice. Again, things just kind of magically happen there sometimes. That means I'm fast forwarding, so you don't have to sit and watch me do the same process every time. But then you're getting to see like the different color combinations and the different things that I'm doing. So here's some green gold. We're doing another gel plate cleanup. So I'm putting a piece of white paper down to pull up all the little bits left over on the gel plate, pulled up with this green gold color. And I really enjoy that. I like all these gunky pulls that I'm getting when I'm trying to clean the plate. Are any of you guys like that? Do you like the cleanup pulls sometimes better than intentional things that you're trying? It's like happy accidents, I guess. So now I am making my round of background papers that are only partially covering the plate. I mentioned earlier that I wanted to do some of that color blocking, and so this collection here is going to create the backgrounds of my color blocking pieces. And that there, I was letting you know that I had so much green gold left on my brayer that it mixed in with the colors. So you didn't see me put green gold on the gel plate, but it just naturally mixed in. And then it got way wider than I expected, but that's okay. I actually end up really liking that print. And then I wanted to stop since that brayer was staying kind of wet and getting dirty. I grabbed another brayer, my speedball brayer, which is yummy and delicious, but it was covered in paint, and so I peeled that off, and then it was all soft and smooth and ready to go. All right, back to it. My color blocking background papers. And then right there, I'm just using the little plate as a roll off. I'm done using that to pull any of the grass prints and I'm also out of my watercolor paper, and so I'm just kind of done with the small ones. So I do have that spot there on the bottom where a lot of paint pulled, and so I'm pushing the grass and kind of pushing some of the paint back over, kind of troubleshooting there. And then here is my first color blocking pull. What do you think? I really enjoy these. I like that the one side kind of looks like a cyanotype and then the one has the color. So the little art journal I have to the right, I went ahead and flipped that over because my page was getting full of paint over there. And I noticed there was something on my brayer, so using my gloved hand to pick off whatever that was, like a little piece of dried paint or something. Otherwise it leaves like little spots on your gel plate. Back to the 2-inch brayer. So you'll notice I'm kind of using the 4-inch brayer to apply the paint, and then the 2.2-inch brayer to roll through the grass. And I'm kind of flip-flopping. Sometimes like I'm using the top of the grass there, and then sometimes I'm using that really firm part of the bottom of the grass. If you do this project, experiment with both. Really love that one. Love the contrast and that yellow behind it. Sometimes using my hand. Sometimes that's just easier. And cool marks on the brayer, as always. Another cool color block print. And then this time I decide I do not want to waste all of the cool texture that was left behind. So I make sure that's dry, and I add some of this light yellow. And then grab a piece of white paper and you can pull that up. Some really cool marks there, and I like the direction those grass lines are going. And then cleaning this one up. So I did have one last full sheet there, and I did this print, which turned out really nice and crisp. Didn't line up perfectly, but that's okay. You can always crop that. So then this is it. I am putting down a layer of paint on both. I'll put the magazines on top, let that set, and then do one big final pull. Now this was actually like a day or two later that I'm pulling this off. And I was really sad because my deli paper started to tear. But I just kind of had to go for it. So I do really like that color combination there. And I like the texture. But it was just sad that it kind of ripped. And then right here I'm kind of showing you that you can see through some of those tears. So I'm like, okay, maybe it could be a good thing. Because if I were to put that down in a collage or something, then you can see through the parts that had the tear. This one did really great, especially around the edges. There was all this built up like indigo and Payne's gray, and it did a really good job of pulling all of that up. I was really impressed. All the little extra bits of paint left behind, it cleaned it up really nicely. So I'll run you through the finished pieces. This isn't all of them, this is just some of them. But I'm curious, do you have a favorite or do you have a favorite style? Let me know in the comments. Hey, this one kind of matches my outfit. I laughed at that part, I had to keep it in. Curious if you like the watercolor pieces. Now when I look at them like this and finish, especially this one I kind of like. So I don't hate them, but in the moment they were definitely not my favorite. And it's kind of funny like how in the moment something you don't like, but then later when you look back at it you're like, oh okay, no, that's not bad. I do really like these like crisp yellowy green backgrounds. This one of course was really important to me because it inspired the color blocking pieces. This one was an experiment doing the white, and then a few of the color blocked pieces at the end here. So I really hope you enjoyed this video and enjoyed seeing this process. And hopefully having like the full process video attached to the previous video is helpful to you. And as always, thank you for being here. Subscribe to my channel if you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys next time.